AM 1600 KIVA and 93.7 FM. This is Life Imagined with Dr. William Summers. You're welcome to text in during the show at 550-5500, 550-5500. Getting lots of compliments on Dr. Summers' show. And as always, we appreciate all of you guys listening here each and every week during our 11 o'clock hour. Dr. Summers, good morning to you.
Good morning, good morning, good morning.
We got our mic right above you, sir.
Oh, yes, yes. Let's try it again.
Calm down. That's about the only
good
time.
Morning, good morning, good morning. Yeah, it wasn't obstructing my vision the way it does when I get up on it like this. This is good.
Got to have that giant mic in our face, as always.
All right, a little more coffee here.
Yeah, a little more coffee, a little bit of that McCafe that's coming in. And, we would like to review all the news stories for the week. Before we even get started, I'd like to talk about something specifically with you. Pretty amazing what happened in New York this week with the passage of the abortion.
Oh, my God.
Like all the way right up until practically the minute of birth, the baby can now be aborted. And I got to tell you, this is Andrew Cuomo. The Catholic Church has yet to excommunicate him.
They need to.
And this is a pretty serious thing. And I just, we're a conservative station. I'm a Catholic, and I was absolutely appalled. And we talked about it several times this week on the show. Now, we, of course, here in New Mexico are the late-term abortion capital of the world. People fly them in from all over to do that. But, wow.
I think New York is moving to become the 50th in anything good and first in anything bad. They're competing with us. Do you believe that?
I don't.
I mean, we're outstanding because we're always number one in things bad and number 50 in things good.
But this is very
tragic.
So
New York is trying to do this. It's just terrible.
I mean, I can't imagine someone going through the
Obviously, none of the legislators saw Gosnell, did they?
No, none of them. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, no, this is. I hate to sound like Glenn Beck, but, this is going back to, the kind of child sacrificial stuff of Moloch and of Baal, who was the god Mars back in biblical times. This is, and it puts a biblical curse, and it's just, it's not good, not good.
This week was the 30th anniversary of the execution of Ted Bundy.
A wonderful thing.
A wonderful thing. He killed what could be determined 36 people, but a serial killer nonetheless. Started Washington State, ended up in Tallahassee, Florida. It's all over Netflix. Netflix putting that you do not want to watch this particular documentary alone. It is pretty fierce.
Is it pretty intense? Whereas Gosnell was not. They purposely kept the gooey parts away.
Yeah.
So you could see what the real crime was. The guy would let children be born, then he would walk in the other room with them and kill them.
Absolutely devastating. Let's talk about the lead story of the week because it sort of kind of dovetails in a weird way to that. And let's talk about something you want to mention to me.
Oh, the Golden State Killer. Yes.
I'm not familiar with this guy.
This was I spent 11 years out in California, and
he got found out much later, didn't he?
The whole deal. What it was,
lived a whole fulfilling life.
Yes, the guy was 73 when they caught up with him, and the deal is that this is right out of a sci-fi type of movie. What happened was there were 3 separate crime sprees in California, okay? And if you sum it all together, the guy did 12 murders, 50 rapes, over 100 burglaries between 1974 and 1986, when he apparently developed arthritis or something like that. But at any rate, what happened was it was in 3 different areas of California, so they gave it different names, and they started looking, and it turned out that the M.O. was so similar that it was obvious all 3 crime sprees were done by the same person. Well, some student policeman uploaded some DNA from one of the crime scenes to one of these genetic places, where you go like 23andMe.
Okay.
Or there's GenMatch, or there's Ancestry. And what they did was they just uploaded some of the DNA from one of the crime scenes and said, hey, who are my relatives? And it came back.
Wow, really?
Yes, and it came
That
back.
is so fascinating.
And they gave the relatives, and the relatives all pointed in the direction of this Joseph James D'Angelo, who had lived in all three of these places in California at the times of the crime. And, of course, he was a cop turned rogue. It happens. It happens.
That is so incredibly fascinating.
What they did to nail him was they followed him around. They snuck up on him, and after he got out of his car, they went and did some swabs on the door handle that he had touched. And he blew his nose and threw the Kleenex away, and they got that.
Bang.
And
Right
they matched it up with the crime scene, and it was him. He was a 72-year-old Navy veteran, former police officer. And they hit him for 8 counts of first-degree murder. But there's 12 murders involved in the 3 different cases. So, I think I don't know, maybe the Department of Pre-Crime is, you remember Tom Cruise?
Yeah,
and the
Minority
Department
Report.
Minority Report.
Yeah.
And we're not too far away from that.
Yeah.
But we go back to one of my basic life principles, and that is that there's no such thing as a lie, Eddie. Mm-hmm. It doesn't exist. All there is a time delay between when the truth becomes known. Mm-hmm. So if you live your life with that truth, then if you want to rob a bank, that's cool. Go right ahead, because the truth is there's an 85% chance you're going to get caught. You're going to serve 6 to 8 years for it, and you're going to make about $2,000 to $4,000,
wow,
which you probably won't have time to spend before they catch you.
Right.
But if that's what you want to do, go for it. You see what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
There is no such thing as, and the thing is, human guilt is such that even if you, quote,
I
did
agree,
get away,
and then it creates diseases. And I was talking earlier this week with a friend who I hadn't seen in some time, and he had told me that he just got diagnosed with bipolar. And what I thought was kind of interesting about it is, my thoughts on it, and how I've kind of come to grips with, bipolar 1, bipolar 2, and trying to understand what it is. And he had told me that he was sexually abused as a child at 6 years of age. Mm-hmm. And it just so happened that, I had a very similar experience. And, I know that there's been tendencies for bipolar 2, supposedly, in my background. We have schizophrenia from my grandmother's side. And, you start to kind of get into hereditary stuff and discovery and things like that. But he had very much repressed these feelings, had not thought about them, had figured out a way to sort of compartmentalize to them. And, I'm no doctor.
They're always there.
Yeah, I'm no doctor, as you know, Dr. Summers. I'm not skilled in that. But I do know something about people who repress feelings or hold things back or are guilty about things, and they don't actively deal with them, like not going through the door, if you will. They just sort of, it's always there, and they just haven't dealt with it. Is it metastasizes into something else in your health or in your body physically. It manifests itself in some other way. So there is no crime that you can commit that's, I think, crime. Let's see, consequence free. That's my thought. And it's more philosophical than anything, but I said, he had told me that he was bipolar. I said, welcome to your bipolarism. I said, you figured out a way to kind of deal with something, and in so doing, you created another problem in addition to the problem that you didn't deal with.
The wonderful thing is we can actually clearly make the diagnosis. Mm-hmm. And we have a whole armament, a whole shelf of pharmaceuticals we can use to control it. So in this day and age, if you are bipolar, you go look up and you become as acquainted with these medicines as your doctor, and you can manage your bipolar and do anything you want to do.
Okay.
And if you go back even 20 years ago, we didn't have that freedom. Mm-hmm. But today, bipolar is almost 99% chance you can totally manage it and live a regular, normal life to full extent of your life. But if you don't manage it, it actually takes years off your life. Mm-hmm. There have been a number of studies back in the 40s, 50s, and 60s showing that people with unipolar, that is depressive, it shortens their lifespan if they don't treat it.
Right.
Now, the other interesting thing about bipolar, you mentioned bipolar, what happens is you get an episode of mania, and if you aggressively treat that episode of mania, there's increasing evidence that that would be your episode of life. But if you let it go, you ignore it, you're going to have a second episode probably 75% of the time. And if you ignore the second episode and don't properly treat that one, 90% chance you're going to have a third. So by aggressively treating each episode of mania, you decrease the likelihood of future manic episodes. So there's...
and a manic episode specifically is what?
Manic episode is characterized by 5 particular symptoms, okay? First one is hyperkinesis. They're hyperactive, they're up, they're busy, they're running 48, 72 hours at a time. They crash for 4 hours a nap, then they're up running around again.
Yeah.
The second,
I'm familiar with that.
Yeah, the second thing is what's called push-up speech, where you talk real fast and you talk so fast that other people can't follow you and it's, so push-up speech. The other thing is what's called flight of ideas. So your mind is going so fast and you're skipping from one thought to the other to the other. Now, I have a little cartoon that I use to have, explain it to medical students, and it shows a guy running along with a Superman outfit on, and he's looking back at the grass as he's just about at the edge of a cliff he's going to fall over. Okay? And so the guy says, let's see, and he's looking at the green grass. He said, okay, well, the dog ran down the lane, and I love bowling. And you go, that doesn't make sense. Well, what happened was he looked at the grass is green, okay? The green reminds him of, dogs, doing things on the lawn and going down the lane and, bowling. Wow, bowling lanes, yeah. So all of those thoughts are going through his head so fast that what comes out of his mouth is, the dog ran down the lane.
I'm
love
laughing,
bowling.
of course. But,
Yes.
It could get to a point where it is no laughing matter.
Well, I remember one guy who was an inpatient and went in and he handed me this little slip of paper with some sort of marks on it. He says, that is a patentable invention, and it will change the world. And I looked at it, it was just gibberish. Later, and I kept the piece of paper because he felt it was very sacred. After we treated his manic episode, I brought the paper back to him and I said, can you tell me what this means? And he looked at it like he'd never seen it before. So it is one
That's
of the
incredible.
things that, well, it's almost a cognitive thing. They're like not there, but they're there. So you get the flight of ideas, you get the push of speech, you get the hyperkinesis, you get the hyperdistractibility. And they'll do things without thinking them through. And those are the dangerous things. I had a kid back in St. Louis who got manic, and he decided to go skating. And when he came back from skating, he lived in a rough part of St. Louis. And he'd forgotten to bring his money because they get distractible and they don't do things like bring money. So the taxi cab guy says, well, listen, let me hang on to your skates. Well, the kid on the way into the house decided, well, I've been offended. Well, what do? You go get your gun, you come back out and shoot at the taxi cab driver. But you don't do that in either Chicago or St. Louis because those bastards will shoot back. Fortunately, his mom came out and basically put herself between the two of them. Otherwise, this kid would have gotten shot.
Right.
But they don't exercise good judgment when they're manic. Okay,
Right.
They're hyper distractible. They don't really focus on things. They make decisions.
How long
that are
can
just
mania
bad.
last?
Typically, it'll last between a couple of days on the low side to generally around 2 months.
Really?
It's generally gone within 2.5 to 3 months, goes away, and it can fluctuate back and forth. 50% of the time before a manic episode, you'll have a depressive episode. So it feels great to be manic, and you don't want to be treated, but you should be. Because you're making judgments. You're buying up trailer parks. I had this one patient who's, she was really pretty.
She bought up trailer parks?
Well, no, she went on a cruise, and she had an episode when she was halfway between Hawaii and the United States, and I get a call on the ship-to-shore phone. saying we got to treat her, and so we did. We treated her on the ship, but she suddenly went up to the captain and said, "I like your boat," and she pulled out her charge card and wanted to buy the boat. This is the sort of thing these folks do. But anyway, and you get mimes of that. You get imitations of that when people get high on methamphetamine.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Stay away from. We don't want those two to cross.
Well, methamphetamine, if it's put out and supervised by the FDA, it's a damn good drug. Mm-hmm. Okay, we use it for ADHD. Mm-hmm. But methamphetamine made by your neighbor in the garage, not such a good thing.
Right.
He puts rat poison in it, banana extract, and, who knows? You don't know what's going to go in there. But
it should be
like
a comedy show, doesn't
yeah,
it?
these
episodes.
These things get funny, but the manic state really is temporary. Oh, I was going to say, half of the time after a manic episode, they'll drop into a depression. Mm-hmm. So you want to look after you treat a manic episode. You've got to look very carefully for a depression, because that's when they commit suicide. Is when they drop back into a depression. So you have to be very vigilant of the fact that before and after a manic episode, 50% of the time on either side, which makes it close to 100%, one or the other, you're going to get depressed before the manic episode, or you're going to get depressed after the manic episode. And that is the dangerous part. Now, while manic, somebody might want to shoot them or hang them, because they're so obnoxious and so difficult. So they're liable to get murdered during that case. But after it and before,
they survive their manic episode and don't get shot.
Exactly.
They might shoot themselves.
But it's a disease we can totally control, depending upon insight. If you know you've got it, if you accept that, we have all kinds of good medicines that really control it well. And all you do is follow the symptoms and, shift the medicine to match whether it's going into a manic episode, or you're between episodes, or you're into a depressed episode. So that's good news there. Good news there.
Let's talk about where you can get Memory Revitalizer and Life Imagined. Local stores included Moses Country Store, Durand Central Pharmacy, Sam's Regent Pharmacy, Best Buy Pharmacy, Manal Pharmacy. Where's that?
Oh, that's on Manal.
Evergreen Herbal Market, Village Apothecary, and Cedar Crest. Or visit the website, memoryrevitalizer.com. That's memoryrevitalizer.com. Amazon.com, search for it there, or dial them direct. Yeah, 800-606-0192. All right, time for
and right now we've got a special. If you dial in and call into the office and you buy a Life Imagined bottle, it's a 2-for-1 deal.
Wow,
so you buy one, you get one free.
800-606-0192. That's 800-606-0192. I love the Daily Mail.
Yeah.
It's something I look at all the time. You know what I like about it is I love how they always have the bullet points at the front. So you have your takeaways, and then you can go in and get the information in the background, so you get to hunt, and which is a nice thing. I like reading the Daily Mail. You like that part of it too, right? I mean, getting the bullet points and the takeaways. Obviously, when I'm developing my show and when I do the show.
And there's more truth in British tabloids than there are in American papers.
Oh, no question about it. But one of the great things that, I try to do with our show all the time is to make sure that there's takeaways for people.
Oh, yeah.
People are looking to spend the time with you. They're not looking to hear random banter and your obnoxious, jokes about things. They're looking for a takeaway, something that they could learn in a different perspective.
Well, the Latin word doctor has meaning. It means teacher. So if I'm doing my job and you're listening to the show, hopefully at the end of the show, I've brought some information to you that you can find useful. And that's what I try to do when I prepare the show, is to have stuff that is of personal use.
You have the takeaways each and every time. For example, the last take-home, if you will, can the Department of Pre-Crime be far behind, as you wrap that one up? Let's get into the Daily Mail. What's new from the health feed from the Daily Mail?
Well, it's the first month in the year. We got to talk about weight control. The Nanny State has a subdivision, not just the Ministry of Funny Walks, but there's also the BNF, which is the British Nutrition Foundation. And they have tried to translate calories and portion sizes to things that people can identify with. So in terms of making it more user-friendly, they've decided body parts are how you can determine your portions. So, for example, how much meat should you eat? Chicken, fish, or steak. And the answer is half of your hand. Okay? So you take your hand, you figure out about half of it. Okay, fine. That's how much meat you should have. Cheese, how much? 2 thumbs worth. Okay? So I guess it'd be 2 thumbs up for your cheese. Yogurt, only 2 thumbs. Now, why? I don't agree, because yogurt is really, because of the bacteria, don't get all the calories that they list on the side. The bacteria are busy eating them. Pasta, 2 handfuls. And seeds and nuts, only 1 handful. And olive oil, 1 teaspoon. Now, I don't know how. I guess that's a thumbnail. Who knows? But anyway, the thing that they're trying to point out is that if you look at it, most people underestimate our calorie intake by 50%. So if you start using these rules like don't eat more meat than half of your hand, well, if you go to Wendy's and get the bacon triple burger delight or something like that, you have violated that. And when you start going around looking at what you're eating and start using their body parts scale, you find that most people are eating twice as many calories as they should be eating to lose or maintain weight. Mm-hmm. That's number 1. Okay, another quick takeaway from the Daily Mail is, what is eye food? What is food that's good for the eye? And this one, actually, I agree with. Salmon, tuna, oily fish, and that's your omega-3s. Mm-hmm. Avocado, which actually has a form of vitamin A called xanthine, plus vitamin C in it. Eggs, of course, are really quite good because that's got a lot of vitamin A in it.
Because they're eggs.
Yeah, they're eggs, Carrots, traditionally we're told we're supposed to eat carrots, right? By Bugs Bunny even. And then green tea. So those are the foods to eat if you want your eyes to be better.
You do realize that my children almost never know who Bugs Bunny is.
Oh, that's tragic.
Fascinating?
That is tragic.
Yeah.
I mean, I love those old...
Overture, dim the lights, we'll hit the lows and we'll hit the heights.
Well, you got to have that interaction between Elmer Fudd and Bugs Bunny.
Oh, man,
that is so classic.
And you'll never see a gun bend quite like that. I'm still looking for that gun. Where's the gun that you could tie into a knot, right? We're speaking with Dr. William Summers. This is Life Imagined, and as always, you're welcome to text in at 550-5500. How do we prevent strokes?
Well, you use more fiber. Fiber is the stuff that your body cannot use. Mm-hmm. It's the stuff made by plants. It's the indigestible part of plant foods and vegetables, fruits, grains, and beans. And the fiber actually increases the bowel transit time, so things pass through faster. It protects against colon cancer and constipation. But it also makes those cute little rafts that float through your bowel, and, the bacteria in your bowel jump on the fiber and I guess play tennis, or I don't know what they do on the fiber, but it becomes sort of a Tom Sawyer or Huck Finn type of thing going down the Mississippi. So you get on these rafts, these little bacteria, and they reproduce and all that, but they also take the food around them and turn it into short-chain fatty acids, which down-modulate inflammatory diseases of the bowel. So if you eat more fiber, you actually improve not just bowel function, but you also decrease in the inflammatory disease in the bowel, which then decreases the chance of heart attack and type 2 diabetes as well as stroke. So you got to put more fiber in your diet. Not a piece of news, but it is a piece of useful news as we start the new year off. So there we have it. The take home is it's all good, but take your memory revitalizer and your Life Imagine. Please, it's only 4 to 6 capsules a day.
Yeah,
that's all we ask.
Let's shoot into the outer space. Did you know that China established a base on the dark side of the moon, supposedly?
That is very ominous because the Chinese have been very open about the fact that they want that to be a military base.
Yeah. And they're sharpening their swords, cleaning their guns. They're ready to go to town, and they're about to invade Taiwan. Real quick thought on that. Do you think they will?
They're good at brinksmanship. The one thing they're very good at is they come at you in a very intimidating type thing, but if Mr. Trump is on his game and not distracted by all of these shenanigans that are going on in Washington, then I don't think the Chinese will, not during his administration. But the Chinese don't think in terms of 1 year, 2 years. They think in terms of decades. So, the actual invasion of Taiwan, they may just wait around until we've got a weak president like the last one.
Yeah. Or any president after Donald Trump. Let's talk about outer space. Time for a message from outer space. What kind of messages are we getting?
Well, we're getting neutrinos that we're picking up. And these are tiny, massless particles that are extraordinarily hard to detect. And what happens is we've discovered if they collide with ice, they give off flashes of light. Isn't that cool?
Yeah, that is.
So what we did with our budget, instead of building a wall, what we did was we buried light detectors under the ice beneath the South Pole. Obviously more important than a wall to protect our border. Mm-hmm. And so these ice detectors are down there in the ice, like, half a mile down, that sort of thing. And they recorded a whole bunch of flashes recently. There was actually, I guess it takes a while to get the data and analyze it, but it actually occurred on September 22nd. And these neutrinos collided with the ice and the sensors in the ice in the South Pole, and they got a good fix on the direction it had come from. Before, they would see neutrinos, but they had no idea where they were coming from until they set up this series of detectors. And they were able to absolutely, certainly figure out where the neutrinos had come from. So they went to NASA's Fermi Gamma Ray Space Telescope, looked into outer space, and shazam, they found what's called a blazar. And the blazar is in the center of a supermassive black hole where supergravity heats up gas and causes material and fiery jets of particles to project into space. And that's what came through and hit these sensors in the South Pole. It is the first extragalactic source of neutrinos discovered by the neutrino telescope in the ice in the South Pole. And I had no idea we had a neutrino telescope. Did you?
I had no idea. No, not until you told me. The message from outer space.
And I've always been wondering why we are so badly in debt. We got to have a neutrino telescope.
We can see neutrinos.
Right. Well,
there's all those various things at the Festivus that are announced by Rand Paul, and he talks largely about the amount of government waste. Speaking of, we came. The government waste is back. We reopened the government yesterday, Dr. Summers. Yeah, the shutdown is over.
Oh my gosh, that's incredible!
Can you believe it? We can finally all get back to our lives. I wasn't able to breathe for the last 34 days or get anything done because the government was shut down. Yourself?
Well, myself, every Friday around 4:30 or even probably as early as 4, I noticed the government shuts down until Monday. And somehow or another, I survive every weekend despite the government shutdown.
I thought they stayed open and up all the time.
They shut down.
Well, good for them. They're back up and ready to go.
Up and running.
And we can have a State of the Union address.
Yeah.
Nice
and for 3 whole weeks, we're going to, And this is going to mean that the Democrats are going to negotiate in good faith finally.
I think good faith. They're all about faith, aren't they?
Yes, they are.
Really, in every sense of the word.
Yeah, fake. Good fake. It was a head fake.
I do want to say one thing with regard to that. When people came out and criticized Donald Trump for deciding that he was not going to give the State of the Union, I think it's obvious that the guy, again, is playing chess while everyone else is playing checkers. He was using that as a bit of a gambit to help him work through the process that he was negotiating in good faith, and he was not going to try to make Pelosi look any worse than she was.
I hope he
already
gives a
looking.
barn burner when they do the. And of course, in the 3
he
weeks,
absolutely will be. There's no doubt he is going to not just own the shutdown, but he'll own the revival as well.
Oh yeah, no, the State of the Union address can now go on during the 3 weeks, can it?
Well, Donald Trump likes his theater. No doubt, any chance he can get out in front and talk about something, and in front of all the world, it's going to be the most watched State of the Union speech.
Well, I expect that OCD or OCS or whatever it is going to do a protest. And wear a vagina hat or something, something really outrageous.
That's right. Well, we want to remember this speech. The best way to do it is to take our memory revitalizer.
That's
Local
right.
stores, including Moses Country Store, Duran Central Pharmacy, Sam's Regent Pharmacy, Best Buy Pharmacy, Manal Pharmacy, Evergreen Herbal Market, as well as the Village Apothecary in Cedar Crest. That's a nice store, huh?
It is a cute little store. The gal who runs it is up there holding forth now in her, I think, 6th or 7th year. It's a tough place to make a living up there in the mountains.
I've told you that is my favorite word, right? Apothecary.
Yes.
I love that word. You can also pick it up at memoryrevitalizer.com. That's memoryrevitalizer.com or amazon.com, or dial them direct for a 2-for-1 at 800-606-0192. That's 800-606-0192. No soup for you, the soup of the day for general medicine. What's going on? What do we got new this week in June?
Well, we're back into the politics thing here. It turns out that Chuck Grassley, a Republican from Iowa, and the Democrat from Minnesota, Amy Klobuchar, introduced a bill to import prescription drugs from Canada.
They say it, the liberals say it, Klobuchar.
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 That's the French.
Is that what it is?
I guess. I don't know. But, didn't she almost lose this last election?
Yeah, and she wants to run for president.
Oh, my God. Anyway, so
barely win at home, or in Beto's case, you don't win at home, and then you still run for president.
Well, he's got the backing, I think. Anyway, I think his father-in-law has some bucks.
I'm sorry, I'm distracted by
yes.
our beautiful 45th president.
So. Absolutely. Klobuchar is getting together with Grassley and going to get a bill passed which allows us to take our prescriptions to the Canadians. And it's all new and it's all wonderful. And it means we're going to have cheaper drugs and all that sort of thing. And, of course, they're trying to upstage Donald Trump, who's actually working on legitimately lowering the price of drugs. But here's what these guys have come up with, and that is by going to the Canadians and going to the Canadian pharmacy. First off, it's been done before. Boston did it. They had a program for going to the Canadian drugstore, and they're still doing it, but very few people use it because it's not any less expensive. State of Illinois tried it, and they abandoned it. But the Canadian drugs, as it turns out, are not that cheap. All right? Second point is 80% of the drugs sold in America are already generic and relatively inexpensive. Okay? But here's the kicker, and that is that 87% of Canadian drugs in a survey of 3,600 packages contained counterfeit or unlicensed health products. Counterfeit or unlicensed health products. Okay? And why is that? Well, it's because the Canadians, being such friendly blokes and all that sort of thing, import their drugs from 27 different countries, and that includes drugs made in Turkey. You would take a drug made in Turkey, or Iran. You would take a drug made in Iran? I wouldn't. So the point is the quality of the Canadian drugs is really quite questionable. So here's the takeaway on this, and that is if you allow politicians to play with your health care, how can anything go wrong? Well, of course it'll go wrong. Things will always go worse when the politicians get involved. So, again, take your Life Imagine, please. Take your Memory Revitalizer. Stay healthy. But letting the politicians go in grandstand, pretend that they did something, and when they walk away, almost invariably, they've made things worse.
Yeah, and tell you what, the government always will make things worse and create huge inefficiencies and large costs at that. Let's talk about as always, breaking down the Memory Revitalizer, what's in it, why you try to make it better, how you try to improve it. I believe last week we focused on B6.
We did,
Yeah.
and actually I got a text from somebody saying they didn't get all of that. So I thought we'd go back.
They didn't
and
get all their
revisit.
B6?
Well, no.
What happens when you don't
true
get all your
too.
B6?
But they asked if we'd repeat it, and we have actually some people who take notes. Well, all right. So let me hit the bullet points here. B6 is water soluble, and it's found in every single cell in your body. It's in your little toes. It's in the toenails. It's in your ears. It's everywhere. Okay. And it is a required coenzyme for the synthesis of all kinds of things. In the brain, it helps synthesize dopamine, epinephrine, GABA, melatonin, norepinephrine, and serotonin. So it's a big player. Its actual name is pyridoxine, but it comes in actually 6 different forms, which is why it's called B6. Okay? And the 6 different forms actually have, it's 3 different forms, and each one has a phosphate form. And it's the phosphate form that is the action molecule. It was first isolated in the 1930s. If you don't get it, you have poor sleep, you have strange behaviors, bad heart function,
Wow.
loss of the brain connection to the rest of the body hormones.
Basically, you're a jellyfish.
Yeah, you become a jellyfish. It's kind of like that supposed health memory that makes your brain as good as a jellyfish.
Yeah, why do we all want to be jellyfish?
I can't figure
that
that out,
advertisement just gets you every time, right?
It's so silly. Yeah, we think your brain ought to work better than that of a jellyfish. Anyway, so the pyridoxal 5-phosphate is what's in the revitalizer, as well as the pyridoxine. Now, when we reformulate it, we're going to the pyridoxal 5-phosphate. It turns out there's a rare genetic problem in terms of metabolizing, where some people can't process the pyridoxine to the pyridoxine 5-phosphate. And in 20 years, we finally found one case of a gal who couldn't do that. And so we're, in the next formulation, going to make it all pyridoxal 5-phosphate, so we don't have that issue. But the thing is that you give it for neuropathies. It is a vitamin that can have toxicity, which is if it doesn't metabolize right and builds up in your body, it can actually cause a neuropathy. So that's the story on it. Again, what does it do for you? Well, it causes the use of glucose and creates glucose from stored glycogen in the liver. It gives energy to brain cells. It protects your blood-brain barrier by regulating homocysteine. It keeps from damaging blood vessel linings. It keeps from damaging nerve cells in the brain. It stops cognitive decline. If you're forming myelin, it actually is part of forming the fatty sheath, the myelin that protects nerve cells in the periphery. So it's an essential vitamin, and that's why we put it in the revitalizer.
That's all you need to know about B6. I've got some issues I want to talk with you. Do
Sure.
you mind if I take 10 minutes?
Please.
Okay, because I know you like talking about politics, and there's the assisted.
We live it.
There's the assisted suicide bill that's up in Santa Fe. And I thought
They're going to help people kill themselves?
they are absolutely going to do that here.
Wow.
So that came out this week, and it looks like it's.
Does that include babies? You know, they ask them as they're born, hey, would you like to die?
Would you like to not? Is this
Yeah.
not the place where you wanted to land?
Yes.
You know, yeah, almost. It's pretty sad. I'm not going to lie. I'm pretty angry about it. But
I think it should be a separate division, not of doctors. That's
Well,
not our purvey.
Well, let me give you what happened this week.
Okay.
On Tuesday, a group of doctors and healthcare professionals gathered inside the Capitol to speak out against that legislation.
Thank
assisted
God.
Suicide that allowed the terminally ill patients. They said assisted suicide could lead to elderly or incapacitated patients feeling pressure to end their lives for financial reasons. First, your comment on that.
Well, this goes on in Holland. This goes on actually in, I think Belgium has it as well. And they have taken it to a new level. Where they go, there's someone I know whose mother went back to Holland to live, and she had a stroke. And the stroke was fairly massive. So the doctors, it was initially 2 doctors had to agree that you need to have assisted suicide. Now it's down to 1. And the doctor said, okay, we're going to send her to hospice. Okay, hospice said, we give you 3 days to walk, talk, tap dance, speak French, and be able to tug your left ear.
Right.
And if you can't do that in 3 days, we're withholding food and water.
Wow.
And she died in 7 days.
Yeah, water is like 3 days, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you don't have any kind of liquids at all, it's 3 days.
So essentially, and if you go back to the survivors of the Holocaust, the worst way to die was starvation.
Yeah.
And so this is Holland. This is Holland today. Holland has been always rather cavalier about death.
Placidus representative and Republican Greg Schmedes, who's a doctor himself, I believe he's a surgeon, he called it the perfect crime, and it's not an unnecessary bill that will incentivize people to die early. Does it incentivize?
Yeah, I think so. If you think that someone's going to make it a painless event,
The Democrats are calling this the End of Life Options Act. They said House Bill 90, Senate Bill 153, sponsored by former, I believe that she was involved in the particular healthcare company with Michelle Lujan Grisham, which was Deborah Armstrong.
Well, I think Deb ought to try it out. If they pass the bill, I suggest Deb be the first.
The legislation would require authorization from 2 medical providers and a 48-hour waiting period before someone could take their drugs to end their life.
Yeah, and again, in Holland, that started off as 2 people, 2 docs. Now it's down to 1.
It's absolutely incredible. Well, I had to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah,
you are against it.
Oh, of course. It's violation of morality. I mean, it's an abomination.
Here we are trying to go ahead and expand, health care yet again. We can't pay for it. I know.
Well, first you'd have to have a few doctors.
Yeah.
We don't
when they
have
talk
any.
about expanding and making sure health care is available, I mean, in a practical sense, what doctors are signing up for this?
But, again, I
cover these
I
patients.
basically don't practice in the state anymore. Most people I know, and of course it could be because I'm a bit older, have dropped out of the business or been thrown out of the business by the board. And so I think that, and the bulk of the health care in this state are by nurse practitioners or people underneath them, physician's assistants. But I think if you look, it'll be trained technicians who do the bulk of the care. They'll collect the vital signs. They'll do the quick cardiac trace.
And the doctor will stop watching Netflix for 10 minutes and go sign the order.
Yeah, or, there'll be a bevy of these people. And I kept running into people where a mistake had been made, and so I corrected it. I would say, well, geez, what do you think about that care? Oh, that person was so nice. I'm going to myself, it would be as if I had a plumber come over for a leaking faucet. And when the plumber left, the faucet was still leaking. Now, I would personally be quite upset by that. And so I'm puzzled. How can they not be upset about their problem not getting fixed?
Right.
Or actually aggravated and made worse? And I finally came up with the answer, because it's free.
Yeah,
so
right.
in other words, if you're...
Free to them, but it's a cost on everybody else because somebody has to pay for their time.
Yeah, if you called a plumber and the state paid for the plumber and the plumber came and they were quite cheerful and happy and told a few jokes and you guys got along well, you wouldn't mind if they left and nothing got fixed, would you?
No.
So, in essence...
They were so nice.
They were so nice.
They were so good.
So the criteria is no longer...
He said he's coming back.
Yes.
He said, well, he'll make sure he'll figure it out. He has to talk to his boss.
Right. And the thing is that, as long as somebody else is paying for it, the whole criteria of what's good and what's bad gets unbelievably shifted from does the problem get solved to were they nice? And that's just wrong. I'm sorry. That's just immoral. And so that's another reason why you want to be paying for your own health care, but nobody does anymore.
Let's talk finally about something that I thought was really interesting. Felons not having their voting rights removed ever. That's actually being introduced.
I personally think we need to go back to the way it was to begin with.
Here it is. The lawmakers are expected to weigh whether the state should stop removing felons from the state's voting rules.
Is that here in New Mexico?
New Mexico, yes.
Boy, they've come through with some real winners of legislation, haven't they?
It's amazing.
I mean, they're raising our gas prices.
10 cents.
Yeah, they're raising
wage.
the cost of a car.
Minimum wage.
They're going to destroy the economy by the minimum wage.
Oh, and increased regulations on oil and gas.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah. So this stuff is making you a bit nervous.
Yeah, it does. I mean, frankly, this is nutty. I mean,
well, you know what's not nutty is your memory revitalizer.
Oh no,
we got to take it.
You need to memory revitalize this so you don't vote for these people again ever. In fact, I think that's
this is Dr. Summers getting angry. By the way,
yeah, it's very upsetting.
You didn't know this all happened this week?
No,
huh?
I mean I was over in Flagstaff doing some work. My gosh,
no, it's
all of this happened while I was gone in one crummy week.
In 1 week.
What are they going to do next week? How do they top it?
How do you top it? Yeah.
I mean, it's madness. It's just, oh my God.
Back after a quick break. Thank you, Dr. Summers, for being here. If you want to pick up Memory Revitalizer and Life Imagined, you can get it at local stores, including Moses Country Store, Durand Central Pharmacy, Sam's Regent Pharmacy, Best Buy Pharmacy, Manal Pharmacy, Evergreen Herbal Market, Village Apothecary in Cedar Crest, or MemoryRevitalizer.com. That's MemoryRevitalizer.com, Amazon.com, or 800 for your 2-for-1, 800-606-0192. 800-606-0192. Aren't you just glad we can get back to our lives that the government's open?
Oh, it's lovely. I just hope that he repeats the whole thing again in 6 weeks.
Yeah, that would be nice. Shut it down for another 34
Shut it down
days.
for another.
Back after a quick break. We got Focused on Biz next with Terry Weiss.